A hot hatch should be small, it should be lightweight, it should perhaps sit lower to the ground than the standard car and look more aggressive than the normal one. But what if someone built a car that broke pretty much all of those rules and then had the temerity to stick the same badge on it as a hot hatch? Would it have any right to be called a hot hatch, and would it be any good? I guess we'd better find out.
When Ford announced that it was bringing back the Puma as a crossover, there was some relatively understandable consternation among fans of fast Fords. You see, the Puma was an icon, possibly the final small coupe that Ford would ever make, and one of its finest. So sticking the name on a crossover, well, that was controversial.
But when the Puma arrived, it looked pretty good. And then Ford Performance told us there would be an ST version and it would keep all the things that we love about little fast Fords. And we said that we would believe them when we saw it, and more importantly, drove it. Well, that day is today. So it's just a high-riding Ford Fiesta ST then? Well, that's pretty much right. There are a few differences though. For a start, it looks a lot like a frog. And that's a similarity that can only be enhanced by this lurid, mean green colour they've gone for. Let's be honest, they could probably have called it the Kermit rather than the Puma. Underneath, it's everything you expect from a small ST, except it's just a little bit taller than the Fiesta. It's the same 1.5 litre 3-cylinder engine you find in its little brother, producing 200 horsepower. It's front-wheel drive, and it's got a 6-speed manual gearbox. And there's that little active exhaust at the back to give it a much more naughty sound than it really should have. But there are some more changes. The Puma is a not insignificant 96 kilograms heavier than the Fiesta, so it's been given more torque, 30 Newton meters to be precise, to make sure that it can match the Fiesta's 0 to 60 time of 6.7 seconds. Going in the opposite direction, the active exhaust has actually been turned down a little bit from the Fiesta to the tune of a single decibel, apparently to make cruising more comfortable. Then there's the fact that it has a massive, massive boot. But the Puma is actually more than just a Fiesta with some blocks stuck into the suspension to lift it up. It's very much its own car. And that means that Ford have had to do some significant work to turn it into an ST. It starts on this performance pack car with a limited slip differential. It's a proper mechanical quaif model rather than some e-diff. There's also torque vectoring to help increase traction out of the corners. There's new anti-roll bars, there's a stiffer rear twist beam, and it's even got something called force vectoring springs, which will help make it even stiffer. The brakes, thankfully, are 17% larger than those on the standard Puma, which is, well, reassuring considering how much faster this thing will go. Then there's the steering, which is 25% faster than the standard Puma, to help give it a little bit of that quick front end feeling that you get on the Fiesta. And if you think the Fiesta feels fast at the front when you turn it, well, this thing, if anything, feels even more rapid. It's got quite darty steering when you're just driving around normally, but that does mean when you get to a corner, you've got a nice rapid turning.
This particular car has also been fitted with the optional performance pack, which adds launch control, a limited slip differential, and some dedicated graphics on the dash for about 950 quid.
Despite that faster rack, turning is not as sharp as it is on the Fiesta, but you should probably expect that considering this is both a heavier car and the mass sits higher up. It is, interestingly, the only small SUV, well, crossover, in Europe with a limited slip differential, and you can feel when it's working. There's a genuine feeling in the middle of the corner if you put power on, where you can feel where it snaps from into action. You feel the whole front end of the car tightens up as you turn, and it feels like you just get that little bit more confidence in the car when that comes into action. Everything just feels like it wakes up. You sort of turn in is a bit, the steering turns rapidly and you feel the whole car turn, but it doesn't really want to go with it. It's carrying so much momentum into it, and it's so high that the roll means it sort of does want to understeer more than the Fiesta ST, which leaves you a little bit less confident on turning. But you can add a bit of throttle and feel that differential just pull the nose around, really gather everything up. It also, and partly because of the roll and partly because of the height of this car, you can generate a little bit of lift-off oversteer if you really wanted to. The front end is dug in so nicely and the weight's over the front that the back end can just gently, nothing massive, just float around a little bit to help you out. Speaking of floating, it does feel a little bit more floaty through the corners than a Fiesta ST. You don't feel quite as nailed down. You can feel that it's wanting to move around a little bit more. But actually, you've probably got to be more impressed that they've made it feel so much like the Fiesta ST while being quite a significant amount bigger. The engine, I love this engine. I love this engine on the ST. It is an absolute gem. It picks up just as well in this car and doesn't feel quite as quick. I think that's possibly because of the mass that you're carrying. Yes, there is extra torque in order to try and make the car as fast to 60 miles an hour as the Fiesta, but it still feels like it's having to do more work than normal. Certainly when you get up the rev range, you want to use that torque rather than in the Fiesta where you can just feel a nice whack of power wherever you want. It's still excellent though, and the thing about it partly is just how good it sounds. Three-cylinder engines are still massively underrated in how good they sound, and this one, it sounds brilliant. And I'm going to say that if it is a decibel quieter than the Fiesta, then I might need someone to define what a decibel actually is, because it doesn't sound any quieter to me. It just sounds really good. I do, and this is the same on most Fords, like the fact that there is a separate S button on the steering wheel, so you can just flick it into sport mode whenever you want, rather than having to find your way through the modes. When you stick it into sport mode though, it does make a difference. It's on passive springs, so there's no change in the way that the chassis actually moves, but the steering response does sharpen up ever so slightly, and that limited slip differential makes a difference when the two are combined, and the engine picks up faster on throttle response and makes just a little bit more noise. If you stick it into track mode, you can get some of those pops and cracks, although you can hear them more on the outside than the inside, which, you know, means other people can enjoy it, I guess. Track mode with this performance pack also means that you have launch control, which is how you get to 60 miles an hour in 6.7 seconds. The interior is, well, it's fine. It's basically the same interior as you get on the Fiesta, but it just feels a little bit, there's a couple of touches that make it a little bit nicer. These seats are excellent as always. They're quite tight, so if you are a larger gentleman, you might find your sides getting bolstered in, and certainly my legs sometimes feel a bit restricted. But the thing that surprised me about this is that they've got carbon fibre effect around quite a lot of the dash, but the way they've done it actually looks quite nice. It's matte finish rather than being some horrible, awful, shiny, plasticky nonsense. So it actually looks really nice. I think it's quite good.
Is this the future of the hot hatch? With more and more buyers being swayed by the call of a higher driving position, you do wonder how much longer the smaller hot hatch has in its current form. Cars like the Puma might not be quite to our tastes, but perhaps they are the only way that the small performance car survives. While it might not be as sharp as the Fiesta or as true to its purpose as a performance car, it's remarkable how close Ford has managed to make the Puma to the Fiesta, which, remember, we think is one of the best cars in the world.
The question is now whether it's 10 grand more car than a Fiesta ST. And I'm going to be honest, I like it, but I'm going to say no. It's bigger. than a Fiesta ST, there's no denying that, and the boot space is very impressive for such a little crossover. However, the performance is the same as a Fiesta ST without feeling quite as good.